My name's John Osborne. I'm a senior editor at O'Reilly and responsible for the books that we publish on .NET and Windows. I've been covering .NET since its unveiling in 2000 and most recently oversaw publishing of our latest offering of C# 3.0 titles at the end of last year. So Joe Albahari, along with his brother, former Microsoft developer Ben Albahari, is the co-author of 3 of the C# 3.0 titles that we published at the end of 2007. Those are the Nutshell, which many of you already are familiar with, the just published Pocket Reference, which is just going out today, actually, a distillation of the C# 3.0 language, and the soon-to-be published LINQ Pocket Reference, which is a compact introduction to LINQ syntax. Joe's treatment of C# in all 3 titles is a direct outgrowth of his years of experience as a core C# design architect at Eggton Medical Information Systems, which is the largest primary healthcare software supplier in the UK. C# in a Nutshell, the book which he wrote with his brother Ben, has received really rave reviews, and readers have loved its focus on how the language is meant to be used through its scores of code snippets and use cases, and especially for its approach to teaching LINQ syntax, which is best summarized by the syntax diagram that appears in all 3 of his books. But not content to just present LINQ in the pages of a book, Joe also went off and created LINQPad, an incredibly useful utility for building and executing LINQ statements written in either C# or VB. LINQPad lets you interactively query local collections and SQL databases without any setup, and it's a great way to get familiar with the language feature. LINQPad has generated a ton of comments and praise, so we thought users would like to hear some advice on how to get the most out of it from its author. And that's what we're about today. So Joe, without further ado, I'm going to turn the podium over to you and let you take it away.
Thanks, John. Let's bring up LINQPad now. So as Sir John said, LINQPad is a tool for interactively querying databases in LINQ instead of SQL. But LINQPad is also, at the same time, it's something else. It's a code snippet IDE. And this is the simplest way to introduce how it works. You'll be familiar with Visual Studio as being a project IDE. So, in other words, it's a development environment that's centered around solutions and projects. Now, LINQPad, on the other hand, is centered around code snippets. So, quite often you will have gone to Visual Studio just wanting to test a snippet of code, perhaps a regular expression, or you want to explore how a particular framework class works. So you might instantiate an object, call methods, set some properties. Now, to do all that in Visual Studio, you have to create a project within a solution, decide what type of project to create, give it a name, create a class, and then either write the results out to the console or trace window, or insert a breakpoint and then bring up the watch or locals window and explore the results. Now, LINQPad has got a much simpler workflow for code snippets. So as you can see up here, we've got a query of type C# expression, which is default. And we could put any valid C# expression in here, so we can use this as a calculator. We just hit the go button, or F5, and it comes up with the result, 4. We could put in a string in there if we wanted, hello world. Up comes hello world. That's another valid C# expression, it's a literal. We can turn that into a LINQ query very easily, because LINQ queries are also C# expressions. So we can put from C in hello world, order by C, select char dot to upper C. And now that lists all of the characters and converting them to all to uppercase. You notice string is, you might be familiar with LINQ and LINQ query sequences, which a sequence is anything implementing the generic IEnumerable sequence. Now string implements IEnumerable of char, so we can query all the characters in a string, just as though it was an array or any other sequence. Now you notice in the results window, this is how it differs a little bit from Visual Studio's output window, is that sequences automatically are expanded out, as in this case, which is kind of like it's a combination of the output window in Studio and the debug window rolled into one. It also automatically expands subsequences and nested objects. So for instance, I could go new file info, the LINQPad for exe. Now, a feature of LINQPad is that you can execute a selection just by highlighting it and then pressing F5 or pressing the Go button. And now that gives us the LINQPad object. It calls to string on it, which gives us a little summary here. But if we click the down arrow, we can explore all of its properties. Under directory, we can see there's a nested object, directory info, so we can click on that and explore that. So this is like the debug and the output window rolled into one. Now, so far we've executed just simple expressions. Sometimes you want to execute a series of statements. So to do that, we do is change the query type here from C# expression to C# statements. So I'll delete what we just did, and now I'll turn this into var query equals. And now it's rather like we're inside a method. So we need semicolons at the end of each line. And now I can put console.writeLine, query.distinct. And now that's going to give me a result similar. We need a semicolon here. A result similar to what we had before, except it's going to strip out the duplicates. Now you notice if we have any errors, if we run into errors, it puts a little icon there with tell us exactly where the error is in a little squiggly underline. So that tells us that we need a semicolon there. So here we are, we've got the same result with the duplicate stripped. Now we used console.writeLine to feed results into the results window. Because this is something we do so much in LINQPad, there's an extension method that does a shortcut for this called dump. So we can just call dump on this instead, and we get the same result. We can call dump as many times as we like, so we can call this again. I can put, for instance, count. So we'll just get the count of the total items in there, and now we've got this here, this result 12 and the sequence. And to help present this, you can give each one a heading. So we can put total count of elements, and here we can put distinct elements, and that gives you a little heading on each. Now, once you've written a query, you can save it on the menu. You've got open, close, save, and so on. So we can save this one. By default, it saves it to a folder called LINQPad Queries in my documents. So we can call this a demo query. And then it appears down here under my queries. So next time you go back into LINQPad, you can just click straight on that. With one click, you can get straight back to where you were, which once again, this is consistent with the workflow you get when you're working with code snippets rather than projects and solutions. Organize just brings up Windows Explorer in that folder. So you can then create, if you want, you can create subfolders, and those subfolders then show up as a tree view inside the My Queries area. So that's how we can use LINQPad in the simplest mode as a code snippet IDE, and also we've seen how we can run local queries on it like this one we just did here. But the real power of LINQPad is that you can also query databases as well. Now this is just an extension, a natural extension of what we've seen to date. So what we do is if we want to query a database, we click the Add Connection on the left, which is like our Server Explorer, and we specify a connection. Now we can tell it to attach to a particular database file. We can create a new database on the fly here, or specifying an existing one to connect to. If we just use this option at the top, it will display all of the databases in a tree view, which is usually most convenient. So I'll click OK, and now it's going to give us all of the databases in my SQL Express instance. Now if I click on AdventureWorks, it breaks this down by schema. So we've got human resources, person, production, and so on. So we'll go into, say, sales, and we'll go into, under here we've got customers. Now you notice that all of these tables are pluralized. So the table of credit card is pluralized into credit cards. Now if you've used Visual Studio's Link to SQL Designer or SQL Metal, you'll notice it does the same thing by default. It pluralizes table names. So what we can do, some people have asked, how do I switch this off? I don't like pluralization. To switch it off, you right-click back onto the connection, hit Edit, and this brings up the same screen we had before. And you notice at the bottom there's an option for pluralizing. If you uncheck that, it takes the pluralization off. You'll also notice in here, it also brings up stored procedures and functions. We can query stored procedures. These are all the parameters of stored procedures. Functions, both table value and scalar functions. Once again, you can expand that out and you can see the parameters and all the return values in there. We'll go back to customers. The simplest possible query we can do is we can do a... some people have asked, what's the equivalent in LINQ of select staff from customers? If we right-click this, it brings up some pre-made queries. We're going to book customers.take50, which is equivalent to select top 50 staff from customers. If we want the equivalent of just select staff from customer, that's all we do. We just put customers in there and run it. And we're going to get out now every customer in the database, which is probably more than we want right now because there's quite a lot in there, I think. It'll take a while to run. Here it is. So let's come with all our customers. Usually, though, we'd want this take 50 is a bit more convenient. It just takes the top 50. Now, how does this work? Underneath, LINQPad creates a typed data context, rather like you would get in Visual Studio. And it builds it using reflection.emit. It uses a very optimized series of statements to retrieve the schema, to glean the schema from the database. And then it builds extremely quickly. It builds a typed data context using reflection.emit, and then it subclasses it. And you're working in a subclassed typed data context, and that's why you've got access to this customers property. And that's why this is a valid C# expression, because customers is a property of the class that we've subclassed. Now you can see over here, it's a little bit small on my, I've set the resolution fairly low, but this basically combo refers to the database on the left here, so you can select a different database or switch it off completely if you want through that combo. Another way to do it is if you're in a query and you want to select a particular database, you just click anywhere on the left here like we've got, and you click the little use database link here, and that's disabled because we're already in AdventureWorks at the moment. So let's do a little bit more elaborate query. You notice that what we can also see in here is these blue and green links. Now, these blue links are our association properties for parent entities. So it's automatically looked at all of our foreign key constraints, and it's inferred there's a parent called sales territory, and there are 4 child tables: customer addresses, individuals, sales order headers, and stores. The good thing is that it means that we rarely need to do joining in LINQ to SQL. We can just query straight through these properties. Sales territory is literally a property on the customer's object, and all these others are entity sets, which are like lists of objects. So let's just say I'm interested only in customers whose sales territory is Australia. So we could type in from C in customers, where C.sales territory dot name equals Australia. Now, how do I know that it's name? If we click on any of these links, such as sales territory, it will now bring them up. So we'll jump there and we can see name is a property on sales territory. Because sales territory was a parent of customers, customers will be a child of sales territory. So we can click back on customers and get back to where we were. Now, let's just say I'm only interested in customers who have spent more than $10,000. Now, I want to print out how much they've spent, and I want to filter them only to spend more than 10,000. So we're going to use this total spend variable more than once. So I'm going to use a let clause to assign this to a variable. So let total spend equal dot sales. We'll go through sales orders headers to get their spend, and we're going to sum up the total due amount. And once again, we can click on the sales orders headers, and we can see that if we go down here, we'll have a total due somewhere in there. There it is. That's the one we're after. Back to customer. So we've got where, let, put another where in now. We can now filter and say we only want customers where the total spend is greater than $10,000. And now we'll select new, and we'll C dot account number. I also want the total spend, and I want their addresses. That's our query. Let's run that and see what we get. Okay, we've got everything we want. The account number, total spend. Only problem is our addresses. This is actually a many-to-many link table. Customer addresses is got two parents. It's got the customer and the address. So we need to now, if we go to customer addresses, we need to now reach back into the address table to actually get the useful address information out. So to do that, we'll do a little subquery here. So now that's joined back to the address table. Run that. And now you can see we've now factored out that many-to-many table, and now we've got the addresses here now for each of our customers who've spent more than $10,000 and whose sales territory is in Australia. It's a fairly clean query, notice in LINQ to SQL. We can look at what the translation is to SQL by clicking this button here. You can see what it does. It has to do subqueries, has to do outer joins, left outer joins, another inner join here. So this is what we used to have to write in the bad old days of SQL. After a while, after you've been using it for a while, it actually becomes hard to write SQL queries again because this is so much cleaner and easier than that. And it's really great now that we've got a tool into SQL which produces this SQL for us and that lets us program in a statically typed and very clean querying language. The other thing we can do with LINQPad is click the Lambda button, and that gives us the translation into Lambda syntax. Here we're using query comprehension syntax. Now, a lot of people like to know what does a compiler do to translate that into Lambda method syntax? Now, you can find out by querying the expression property on your query and calling to string on it. That will give you a similar thing, but it will give it to you all on one line unformatted. So once it gets beyond a non-trivial query, it's pretty much impossible to follow what's going on. What LINQPad does, it's got its own expression visitor, which does the same thing, but it formats it nicely so that you can actually see exactly what's going on here. You can see, for instance, that the let keyword, that translates into projecting into a temporary anonymous type here, which is what this does. This is a resolution of the let keyword. Now, we've got a whole lot of additional examples. In fact, what I've done is I've taken all of the examples in chapters 8 to 10 of the C# 3 in a nutshell. Now, these are the chapters that cover all aspects of LINQ, from all the concepts of querying in chapter 8 to chapter 9, which is a reference of all the query operators. It covers in detail everything like joining and projecting and so on. Chapter 10, Link to SQL, that covers Link to SQL in depth, the link to XML DOM, how to update values, how to do projections, and so on. And then as a bonus, we've also thrown in Chapter 24, regular expressions, because LINQPad is very conducive for playing with regular expressions and learning how they work. So you'll see everything in there, for instance, if we go to replacing and splitting text. There's an example here which shows how you take a camel-cased word and you split it up into 3 words. So this is easy to do with regular expressions, and that's a solution for doing that. It's very easy to play with that. You can just fiddle with that regular expression until it does what you want, and once again you get instant results with LINQPad.
Joe, I think we have a question. I'm going to, if I can find Lucille on here, let her ask it herself.
Sure.
She's asking, I can't find, asking, can LINQPad be utilized outside of Visual Studio?
Okay, LINQPad is actually completely unrelated to Visual Studio. It's rather like if you've used XAMLpad. It's got nothing. It's a complete alternative to Visual Studio for when you want to use snippets. So you don't even have to install Visual Studio. In fact, all you need to install is .NET Framework 3.5, and it'll work perfectly. Okay, I'll give one brief example of one of our samples here from the book. A good thing is that if you have purchased the book, you can work through all these examples as you're reading the book, and you can actually edit them. Because what I find is that in order to learn something, it's not enough just to follow along the example. You've actually got to edit the example until it breaks, and then that's when you get to the point where you understand it. So we'll look at one of these ones here, for instance. This one tells you how to perform a flat outer join, which is when, rather than having a little hierarchy inside, you flatten it out like you would in ordinary SQL. And it shows basically what you have to do, a little trick with default if empty, and casting to a nullable type. So I thoroughly recommend, if you have bought the book and you're working through these, they're all editable, so you can put whatever you like in there, and run it, and if there's any errors, it brings up exception, tells you where the error is, and so on, and you can experiment with that as much as you like. Now, I'm going to show you something slightly more. Sure, okay.
Do you mind if I interrupt
Yes.
with questions? Or okay, it's from
Sure,
Marcia,
go ahead.
and she's asking. I downloaded LINQPad today and started looking at the examples. Excellent. Can you please show us again how to obtain the properties window you showed before? So it wouldn't. Okay.
Okay. I think this means the property window for the SQL connection. So here we are. The SQL Express. This is our main connection to the SQL database. If you right-click that, you can click Edit, and that brings up the connection properties we had before. And this is where you can specify those options, such as pluralization.
All right. I think I'll wait and hold the questions till the end of your talk. Would that be better?
Okay. Yeah, that might be better.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to demonstrate a more advanced query now. Under my queries I actually saved one earlier. This is a query that what it does is it pings 6 websites using a LINQ query. I'm going to run that. And it's going to ping each one in sequence. So you'll notice in here, I just need to get rid of this chat window. Okay, query successful, 5 seconds. Okay, it takes quite a while because it's got to ping every one of these in sequence. Now, what we can do instead would be much better is if we could ping all of these websites simultaneously. Now, if you're going to think, well, how do we do this? We could think, well, we create a thread for each, we create a separate thread for each ping. We could use asynchronous delegates. All of this is a lot of work. There is a new development that's just come out which is still in the community technology preview stage, called P-Link, Parallel Link. You might have heard of this. Now, if you download the CTP for P-Link, it's fully functional, and it adds an assembly to your GAC called system.threading. Now, under Query, under Advanced Properties, you can specify any additional references that you want to add. So rather like in Visual Studio, you can add references to anything in the standard reference locations in the GAC, or you can browse to any other location and add any other assembly you want. Some people are finding this is useful because they want to add their own extension methods to LINQ. This lets you add your own extension methods. So we're going to add system.threading. And you can also add extra using statements to the top, which are namespace imports. Now, I've already on this query added these two here. This is why ping works, because ping needs this namespace here. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. You can also set this as your default for new queries, which is handy if you want to put your own library in there. So, okay, I've added a reference now to P-Link. So all I need to do is put as parallel in there. This is where P-Link is very cool. All it takes is one little extra function in here, and we can tell it to parallelize that on 6 threads. So that's going to run the same thing now on 6 threads. And you can see now it took less than a second to run. I'll run that once more, see if we get a slightly better result. Here we are. It took now 0.661 seconds to run. Now the good thing about this little, you might have noticed this query time, this uses a stopwatch class. It gives you a very accurate measure of exactly how long the query took to execute, not counting any overhead that LINQPad had in compilation or setup. LINQ puts every query into its own application domain for isolation. Any overhead in that is not counted in this time here. So you can use it to measure the performance. And you can see here, for instance, that it's not quite as good as we'd hope, because theoretically it should take longer than the longest ping, and it's taking slightly longer. So I've reported this to the P-Link team, and they're looking at this at the moment. I'll go over a couple of other features very quickly. There are a few ergonomic features that are quite useful, which is also centered around the concept of a code snippet editor. One is there's an option here to clone a query. Now, sometimes in Visual Studio, you want to try out a variation of something. So what you do is you copy and paste and comment out the original. Here, all you do is you use this option, Shift-Control-C, clone query, and it gives you identical copy of what you had before. So you can make changes to this without affecting the original. And this one's side by side. You notice it's got the same query type, same database, all the same imports and so on we had before. It does a complete copy and just lets you then make some changes with one keystroke. And that's very useful. Also, there's VB9 support. We can create VB expression statements. There's also support for SQL. Some things you can't really do very easily in LINQ, and you can type SQL expressions directly in without having to leave LINQPad, and that's quite handy if you just want to stay in LINQPad and you want to administer a database. Final thing I'll point out is you can do updates as well to SQL, and the best way to see how to do that is to go to the samples, and under Chapter 8, LINQ Queries, look for Link to SQL, and there's an example there, Updates, and this tells you how to perform updates using Link to SQL using LINQPad. So that's our presentation, and I'm going to hand it over to any questions now, so we'll go back to Catherine.
All right. I'm leaving it on your screen because we have a few questions here that you might want to demonstrate. All right. You showed the properties. We have a question. Why does not LINQPad have case intelligence sensitive? I guess why isn't it?
Okay. Now, LINQPad is neither case-sensitive nor case-insensitive. What it does is it applies the semantics of the language you choose. So if you choose C# expression, then it's going to be case-sensitive. If you choose VB, then it will be case-insensitive.
Okay.
Now, SQL, on the other hand, I'll just comment on Siegel briefly. Siegel is, once again, it's exactly the same thing. It depends on how you set your database up. You can set it up to be case sensitive, or you can set it up to be case insensitive.
Okay. We have our next question is, let me go down. All right. Might we see IntelliSense in a future version of LINQPad?
I was waiting for that one. That is the number one thing I'm working on. It's not easy to put IntelliSense in there. They're referring to auto-completion. It's definitely on the cards. I'm waiting for third-party control support. One way or another, we'll be getting IntelliSense in there. You can rest assured, one way or another, in the coming months, I will get IntelliSense in there. I completely agree with you. It would make it a lot easier, help you a lot, and I'm definitely working on that.
Okay. Here's another. How does LINQPad factor in optimization while building SQL queries?
Okay, LINQPad uses LINQ to SQL, so that means the optimization in the conversion to SQL will be exactly what LINQ to SQL does.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, who funds this great work of yours?
I support it and I fund it myself at the moment. So this is a fun project. This is something I do on the side for fun.
Marcia says, thank you. Any other questions? Matt says, thanks for your philanthropy.
Right.
So I think we're getting a lot of appreciative comments here. Someone's asking, will this be open source?
At the moment, no. At the moment, it's closed source. The executable's free. It's closed source. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet in the future what to do with it over the coming years. It's a possibility it could be open source, but at the moment, it's not.
Okay.
You can, though. I have actually put on the website, and the website's www.linkpad.net, which is where you can download it. It's also, I should point out, it's a 2 megabyte standalone executable, so you don't need to install it. I'm a firm believer that anything that ends in the name pad shouldn't need installing. It should just run. LINQPad is also self-updating, so you never need to go back to check for updates. Once you've got it, it will update itself whenever there's an update.
Great. Any other questions? Oh. Can you see that? Can we customize this program?
Yes, can we customize the program? At the moment, there are the only extensibility points are through the advanced properties by adding additional extension methods. Basically, you can add your own references to assemblies, plug in your own extension methods. I have been considering adding another extensibility point, which would let you plug in your own data context classes into here. This would also allow for things such as other ORMs. We've had some requests for supporting LINQ to entities and third-party ORMs as well. So that is also something that's on the wish list.
All right, and there's one more question from Don asking, did you mention that you need the .NET 3.0 framework?
Okay, you actually need the .NET 3.5 framework to make this work. .NET 3.5 framework has all the LINQ stuff in it, which works in conjunction with C# 3 and VB9. It's rather confusing that C# 3 targets framework 3.5.
And do you see that next question?
Okay, can I use your tool to create snippets and then drop the snippet into a C# program? No reason why not. You can copy and paste it. I've not tried dragging and dropping. You could certainly copy and paste the snippets into Visual Studio if that's what you want to do. I've tried to make the data context generator reasonably similar to what you'll get by default in Visual Studio's LINQ to SQL Designer, so you should find that most things work without needing to edit them too much. Which assembly reference did you add for ping? Ping didn't need an assembly reference because LINQPad by default references all of the commonly used assemblies, and it imports all of the commonly used namespaces. The only thing I did need to add, I needed to add a namespace import, which is, we can bring that up again. We need to add a namespace import for system.net and network information in order for that to resolve. The reference that you saw here, this has nothing to do with ping. This was actually to get p-link or parallel link working. System.threading is the assembly that contains the parallel link assemblies, the parallel link types.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Can you reference an existing custom assembly from an existing .NET solution? Not quite sure I understand the question. Okay, can you demo a stored procedure? Okay, well, we can to do a stored procedure. You here they all are in the Object Explorer. So we'll have a look at one here, which is get bills of materials. These are all the parameters it expects. So the easiest way to do that is we'll start a new query here, and you can just drag that on. And we need to put a start product ID in there. Now I'm not sure I can guess a valid ID, and we need to put a date time in there. So run that. And there's nothing that matches in this particular case, but if there was, we'd see that in the results window. Now, if you want to query functions, functions are actually slightly more powerful because what you can do is, if we call something like get contact information, we can actually run a query on that. So I could put get contact information. Let's see if there's a contact called one, and take 50 on that. And so what that does is it's actually issued a SQL statement which puts select top 50 from get contact information. So it's doing this top 50 filtering on the server side. And that's what makes, in general, it makes functions more powerful than stored procedures. And LINQPad uses LINQ to SQL to leverage that, to make sure that any querying you do over the result of the function actually happens on the server.
All right. And Joe, someone named Angie is asking, the same does not hold true for SQL snippets, correct? I think that refers to the earlier question. Can you create them and drop them into a C# program?
Yes, you can. Can you? Yeah, I'm not sure I understand this question here. .NET Solution start instantiating querying objects. You can add references. I think what the question means is, can you add a reference to your own assembly? You can hit browse here, and now you can point to any location on the hard drive and put any assembly you want in there. So if you've built an assembly using Visual Studio, you can reference that assembly and start using it in LINQPad.
Okay. And then, okay, that was what he was asking.
Okay.
Other questions? All right. I think then, unless there are any other questions, I think we're, there we go. You can.
If you do reference a custom assembly, you cannot do linked entities. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, if you want to use LINQ to entities at the moment, you can do it simply by referencing an assembly with the data context. That will work. The only thing that you won't see at the moment is you won't be able to browse the schema in this tree on the left, so you won't be able to browse your LINQ to entities schema in there. But you can, if you want, reference an assembly that contains all your objects already compiled, and you can use them if you already know what the schema is.
Okay. And then Harold is asking how do you convert a result to a data table?
Okay, now there are extensions, I think, dataset linked to dataset extensions that let you do that. I've not actually played much with datasets, those dataset extensions, because I absolutely hate datasets. I know we've written our own replacement for datasets. I'm not a big fan of datasets, but I know that there are extensions that let you get. Those extensions, I think the namespace is imported by default, so you can use those extensions to get things into data tables. Yes, LINQPad is written in C#.
Oh yes, and Sarah just reminded us that we do have a forum for this topic, and you're welcome to post questions there after we've finished, and Joe will be answering questions.
Indeed.
So I think we'll that will be our last question, and thank you very much, Joe and John, for presenting this webinar, and thank you everyone else for attending. We'll send you an email follow-up with the links where you can download the presentation if you want to watch it again, and we'll be in touch with more information. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.